It's another episode of Where Are They Now, where we check in on former Crimson athletes who are making an impact in their life after Harvard. This week, we're joined by NBC4 Los Angeles reporter and former Harvard volleyball and track athlete Lolita Lopez, Harvard class of 1998. Lolita, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. This is so great. I'm so happy to be here.
I want to go to the dawning of your time at Harvard, your decision to go to Harvard, because I was reading that you already had an idea, you knew what you wanted to do, you knew you wanted to get into broadcast journalism, and you decided, even though there was no specific broadcast major at Harvard, it was still the place for you. Can you kind of walk me through that process?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am the daughter of two educators. My dad was women's track and field coach for Rice University for 35 years. My mom was a school teacher, and I remember them telling me, just go study something that you can use for later. You don't really have to know what you want to do, even though I did. And they were like, government, history, that's all going to come into play to be a journalist. So just go learn that at the best place you can do it. And when Harvard accepted, I was like, heck yeah, I'm going there. It was between a couple of schools. I was being recruited, but I really felt very comfortable at Harvard, especially with the volleyball program and the volleyball coach. I'm not the tallest girl. Volleyball, you see all of these very tall people, and I was getting in there as a 5'6" or 7, we would say, outside hitter, and someone that really believed in me. And that's sort of what I felt in terms of the community, both in sports and in the education, that I could take whatever I was learning and then become whatever I wanted to be with that later on.
You just mentioned it, 5'6" or 5'7" on the roster is definitely not short, but for outside hitter volleyball standards, it's undersized. That's
For
the
sure.
position you played to help Harvard to an undefeated season your senior year. What were you able to do to find a way to overcome, being a few inches shorter than a lot of the folks you were going up against?
Well, the beautiful thing is Coach Bates at the time, now Coach Jen Weiss, was not the tallest herself. So she understood sort of that dynamic. And we worked really hard to structure my block jumping to time out the same way as my 6'3" middle, but I would have to delay it a little bit in order to make that adjustment to be up there. I was, blessed, and I worked really hard to work, and I had some hops. I was a high jumper in track, so that helped. And so those two things sort of combined. I had the jumps there, and then we worked really hard on just finding little ways of making it work. And the thing with me, I call it like short girl syndrome in volleyball, is I just found a way to put the ball on the court or get the point. So I wasn't going to be the hitter that was hitting straight down or hitting the 10-foot line, and that was okay. As long as we got the point, I didn't care how it happened. And so I was crafty and tricky, and I just found ways to sort of make it happen.
You mentioned Coach Weiss, who was just in her second year as head coach when you started there, still the head coach today. As someone who at the time was a new head coach and just starting to work on her vision for the program, what was it about what she wanted to build that made you feel comfortable being a part of the program?
Well, the first thing about her was I remember the summer when the new recruits knew that they were coming in, we were all sent the Phil Jackson book, and we were told, start reading and come in mentally prepared. And I loved that from the beginning because it had nothing to do with the physical. For her, it was like, come in, we're all going to be in this together. We're sort of starting off brand new, and we want you to feel good about yourself and good about where you're going. And so that it started off with that. She always has been a big believer on believing in yourself, believing in your team, and this team unity. If you looked at our team on paper, our freshman, sophomore year, or the year that we won the Ivy League championships, we probably shouldn't have won just based on what you saw, but it wasn't something that we ever thought about ourselves. We always found ways, even if we lost our best hitters the senior year before, whoever was coming up was going to, fill in those gaps. And we were just going to change the game up that made us successful in that way. She always had that vision for whatever group she had. And all 4 years of my time on the volleyball court were all different. My freshman year, we were her first recruiting class. It was 7 of us, I believe. And we came in with girls who were, women who were already in there playing the game. Some positions, we took over as freshmen, some we worked together. They weren't coming from sort of the club atmosphere and sort of that really high intense high school type of career that we were coming from that's only gotten and exploded into something different. So it was that blending. And then sophomore and junior year, my sophomore and junior year, we had newer girls come in, and there was all of these transitions all the time. So it was really much about adaptation and using what you had in the moments and in the years that you had it to make it work.
Yeah, you never really had an off season either, because you also competed in track and field for 3 seasons at Harvard as well. How did you balance all of that, always being in season with the rigors of a course load at Harvard as well?
Well, I had really good assistance from some upperclassmen who sort of helped navigate and helped along the way. I didn't take myself too seriously, and I didn't put too much pressure on myself. I was told freshman year is going to be tough, and you may not get the grades that you were expecting or that you thought you would get, but that's okay, because again, this is a marathon, not a sprint. And so really good mentorship from some of the upperclassmen, coaches really understanding that if there was some stress and anxiety of a big test coming on, then some of our trips, our bus trips to Cornell or Columbia were, there were 2 hours of silent moment. So we could all get our studying in. There were these things that were like adapted into our days. And I really loved having track. I'm a journalist. My day starts at 7-8 a.m. and by 5 o'clock, I need to have something on the air. I'm really good at like really quick turn, and I need to be busy. So for me, having the 2 sports was great, and track and field was so instrumental in helping my volleyball game. I turned out to be a pentathlete. Who knew? In track. So my freshman year was learning to throw the shot and long jumping, which, if anyone who knows any of the sports, high jump and long jump, they're not the same. So everything's a lot different. But I really loved that too. It was these great new challenges that I was becoming involved in that Harvard gave me the opportunity to have. And they sort of blended in. And once I realized that, and I realized that I could A, ask for help, B, ask for time, and C, just not put so much pressure on myself, I ended up actually being more successful that way.
Yeah, there's busy, and then there's training to compete in multi is busy. Yeah, your career since Harvard has taken you to reporting jobs in Texas, a long stint in New York City, and now, of course, out in Los Angeles. And one of the things that is easy to see when you look at your career is that you've always been versatile, been able to do kind of whatever is needed. You've had time as a sports anchor, you worked at Court TV, now you're an investigative reporter, but you also do some anchoring. You feel like that versatility and that do whatever your network needs from you attitude comes a bit from volleyball and from that, okay, find a way to get the point as a 5'6" outside hitter. You just got to get it done.
120,000%. Yes. I use track and volleyball and just sports analogies in general almost all the time. It's actually become a joke within the units that I work in, because they're like, oh, here she goes again with her like sports team analogies. But it really is part of who I am and what I do. Like the challenges that I face, before in sports have help me adapt to any challenges that I face in my daily life, whether it's a technical challenge of a Zoom not working, what am I going to do? I have the Secretary of State on the other line. I have to get this interview, adapting there, to just making it on air and being able to report from a fire or be on air for 6 hours and just be able to have something to talk about. So all of these things that I learned by being an athlete have really helped me in my career. A lot of it has also been to just give me a good mindset of going into every day with a purpose and a goal, and also to take a moment and a breath, right? That breath you take before you take a serve, that I've learned to incorporate into my daily life. And I was really lucky to learn that really early on and have the coaches and the team structures to be able to do that. So yes, you're right. I mean, I've gone from being a main sports anchor in New York City, the first female to do it Monday through Friday. I was the on-field reporter for the New York Mets, standing alongside Tom Seaver, who was a color analyst when I was the field reporter. He recently just died. Taught me so much about, taking a stat and the story of that player and and putting it together as a storyline. All of those things gave me opportunities too, right? I feel like as an athlete who learned a lot of things along the way, I was able to see something that maybe someone else didn't see as an opportunity and be like, oh, I can do that. So the sports, there was one thing. The investigative reporting that I'm doing right now came from sort of a little bit of frustration of, oh, I go out, I have this great information, but then I have to go on a breaking news story and I can't do anything with it. Like, can we do something? And my managers were like, well, actually, we're looking at expanding our unit and doing this thing. What about this? And so it's finding opportunities and really doing something with it that I learned a lot by playing sports.
And then just finally, I'm curious your connection still to the volleyball program at Harvard, how much you check in and what it was like when you got to see the team go to the NCAA tournament back in 2015.
Oh my gosh. So how do I even answer that? Because let me start from the back and then go from the beginning. I remember watching them and literally yelling. And the household was like, what's going on? Are you okay? And I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I remember them taking a set off of Nebraska, who would end up winning. And I was like, this team from where we started has grown so much, and it's still the same group. I talk to the coaches all the time. The alumni group amongst ourselves, we meet up whenever we can, but we're still connected. I participate in the Harvard Women's Volleyball Board. I'm also a participant in that. So I'm very connected because I know how much the sport and the team meant to me. If I needed someone and I was coming out to California, when I first came out here, I reached out to folks who either were from California or were living here to be like, is there anything I should do? Should I look at certain locations? And I received help that way from my former teammates and the players that I knew. So being there and being a part of a group that continues to give to each other even after their time in court is a really amazing thing. And I had the pleasure of taking my 15-year-old daughter back to Harvard to watch them play this past year during alumni weekend, when that team you're talking about, 2015, was given like special recognition. And I emceed that little part in between the sets and, brought them onto the court. And my daughter is sitting there like watching this happen. And she plays volleyball. She can see it sort of happening for herself, kind of getting that atmosphere of Harvard and just like understanding why I have loved it and appreciated it so much. So now I feel like I'm kind of passing the baton, if you will.
That's awesome. We'll get to go multi-generational if we can. Lolita Lopez, thanks so much. It's been a pleasure talking with you and really appreciate all your insight on your time at Harvard and everything you've done since.
Thank you. Go Crimson.